Picture Connecticut 4 years from now. What's different if you're governor?
Everything. Really everything. I would hope that they're looking at Connecticut with confidence for its future and talking more positively about the things that we have to offer here. However, nobody has anything good to say about it because they don't trust their leaders. They don't feel that there's a good vision or a direction for where the state is going. After 4 years of Erin Stewart administration, people would have good things to say.
Welcome to Lock and Load Podcast. My name is Josh.
And I'm Michelle.
And we talk to you about Connecticut 2A issues. Today, we have a special guest, Erin Stewart, who is a Republican candidate for governor this year. Erin, why don't you give a little background about yourself, and then we will dive into the many questions we have.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm Erin Stewart, candidate for governor of our great state, Republican candidate for governor. But before that, I served as mayor of the city of New Britain for 12 years. I was 26 years old when I got elected as mayor, and I spent 12 years of my coming of age sharing that with the city of New Britain. But, just a little background on me too. I wasn't always in politics. I'll say I got bit by the political bug when I was younger, but it certainly wasn't from who people think it was from. So my dad served as mayor too, but my dad was mayor of New Britain when I was in New Britain High School. You want to talk about like the worst thing for a kid in high school to go through? It's to have your parent be the mayor. I hated it. I didn't want anything to do with politics. I was like, I hate you, Dad. I don't want anything to do with this. I'm like, I'm going to college. I'm going to become a pharmacist.
And here we are.
And here we are. Life takes funny turns. No, but
Did you get through the pharmacy aspect?
Hell no.
Okay.
No. So I started off my college career. I was at UConn. Okay. And I was like literally one semester in before this woman, Nancy Johnson. She was a congresswoman from the 5th District in Connecticut for 24 years, originally from New Britain. She offered me a job working for her campaign that summer. And that was in, oh my God, I don't know, 2000, I think it was. Okay. And I started working for her. She lost that election to this little known guy named Chris Murphy.
So he started actually in planning and zoning in Southern Connecticut.
I know.
It's a fun fact, yeah.
Yeah, but if you, God, I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole.
That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, it is. We'll be here for an hour just talking about that. But so, it sucked. It was your first gig and my first job in politics, and she lost. I learned really quickly how sad that could be, but it opened up a lot of additional doors for me. So I finished obviously that campaign. I got the opportunity to go intern for Governor Jody Rell. Mm-hmm. And so for 2 years, 2.5 years ish, I was working in her office, in her policy and legislative affairs office while I was still in college. But I left UConn at that point. I transferred to CCSU and said, I think I want to be a political science major, which I would not recommend to anyone because unless you run for office, like, what are you doing with it? But so my minor was in communications, and then I ended up specializing in public administration because I was thinking at the time, like, what do you do with a political science degree besides go get your master's or, anyway, so I graduated. Yeah, right. I'd love to do that someday, but maybe at the end of my career when you teach from experience.
Well, we're going to go and set Ned this year to go teach at some university outside of Connecticut, right? That's the goal.
You're going to laugh. So when I was a student,
yeah, that's what we do in Malloy, right?
That's what we did with Malloy.
There you go.
When I was a student at Central, Ned was actually a professor. He was like an adjunct professor at Central. Whatever, that seems like where everybody goes afterwards. Yes. But
graveyard of politics.
Yeah. We're really shaping the minds of Connecticut's future.
Yeah.
Although I guess maybe I should go do that, so at least they have some hope.
Sweet. Murphy did my so I graduated from Tunxus and transferred to CCSU, and that didn't pan out.
Yeah.
But graduated from Tunxus, and Murphy did the little commencement speech. That was fun.
I can't imagine how awe-inspiring it was.
Yeah, I don't remember a word from it. It's recorded somewhere, but yeah, it was all inspiring.
All right. So fast forward, right? I'm working in the Senate Republican office. I'm also waitressing at this time. So I waitress.
Well, that's where you're making the money.
Yeah. Are you kidding me? Yeah, absolutely. I was at J. Timothy's in Plainville for years. Yep. Those guys, those owners, they're such great people. We had, I spent many, many years there. It's really paid for my college. Because like I grew up in New Britain, like I'm from a working class family. I don't like my dad was a firefighter before all
Okay.
this. My mom never worked until a little bit later, and then she worked for the state. Don't tell anybody.
Everyone forget that.
Fine. No, but just to give perspective for everyone on like how I was raised, but and went through the public school system in New Britain too, and then eventually graduating from Central. So I didn't really make it very far out of New Britain.
Still New Britain. Yep.
I ended up going back to get my master's though while I was serving as mayor. I went back to University in New Haven. I was pregnant with my son. I was in the master's program. Thankfully, it was all online, so I was able to do it. So I got my master's in public finance and public administration while I was finishing up, well, actually running for my last term as mayor.
That's probably helpful.
At that point, it was, I felt like I loved everybody that was there, but I felt like I could basically teach those classes too. But
dealing with finance and
well, so much of my tenure as mayor was marked by dealing with public finance. When I became mayor, 26 years old, just to kind of give you the full story here, the city had a $30 million operating deficit, and it was mismanagement by the previous administration. That was what kind of drove me to run. What drove me to run was the disconnect between what was happening in the community and the leadership. I mean, the person that was there at the time, like it wasn't even like, I didn't even care that people were clamoring for change, that there were all sorts of taxes and fees disguised, which are really just taxes, that he was implementing and putting forth on people of New Britain, specifically renters at the time. It was, and I was a renter at that time, so I was pissed that I was going to have to pay an extra $200 a year for what? Anyway, so this whole thing comes forward. There's thousands of people that are pissed off. They're rallying in front of City Hall. They're crying for change, and this guy's just like railroading this ordinance through. And I'm looking around and I'm going, nobody's going to run. Who's going to run for office? Like, who's running against this guy? No one's running. And I kind of feel that some way about the Republicans right now when we have empty seats across the state. And it's like, no one's going to run and challenge these people. Like, step up. Somebody's got to step up. I did. And even though everybody was like, who the hell is this kid? Why? But you know what? No one else was going to do it. I felt so passionately about that change. And there we were. We won by 1,111 votes that election night. I took that as like a good luck omen.
That works. That
Better
works.
than so the 81st district here, they lost by 1 vote.
Oh yeah.
So like,
yes.
There's a lot that people don't realize how close a lot of races are.
Yeah.
In this state, as far as for legislature seats,
big time.
When you get up to your higher ups and your governor, and there's more of a disparage on if they don't win that by 1. But for your towns, there's a lot, and people think, oh, my vote doesn't count.
Exactly.
And I get it. I mean, I've been in this ballpark. I've been playing in this game for way too many years, and you're frustrated.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in Connecticut, being a gun owner within the gun industry and a Republican.
Sure.
My head hurts after beating it against the wall, but it does make a difference every once in a while. That's what I tell people all the time. Make sure you go out, even if you think it doesn't matter. It may make a difference.
It does matter.
And, you have to. If you don't vote.
Well, so we talked about this we do a roundtable of some other Connecticut gun podcasters.
Yeah.
And the last episode we brought up in the last election, right, this most recent one, where not just only across Connecticut, but across the country, there was a huge blue wave. And I chalk it up to the Democrats, for the most part, hating Washington. It's not because Republicans went and voted Democrats, because they didn't vote.
You got it.
Democrats went out and voted more, which is always a Republican problem. And when Southington, we held some stuff. We lost some stuff, but we held our town council.
Yeah.
I give myself credit for that. Not to pat my own shoulder on the back there, but we'll give Steve some credit too. And everyone else in SRTC. There we go. I'm sure they're going to be watching this. Sure, I'm going to get some shit for that. Plug. But Berlin held their stuff too. Donna stayed on town council. Donna Beach is a rep too.
My town did.
You guys held out. Woket held out barely. That's a whole other thing. But Cheshire, right next door, keeps losing. And that's Sad.
Well, and they're running people
And
without
Bristol.
anybody running against
Bristol
them.
too.
And
yeah.
Bristol too, they lost the mayor and their state reps. That is probably the most sad thing, is that there's so many. There's a lady that I keep seeing on Facebook, and she's like keeping a tally of like who's running against in Senate districts, House districts.
There's a lot of
in the
empty
state level.
spots.
There's a
So
lot.
many empty House spots.
So that's why I talk about, like if no one was going to step up and run, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
And and who knows where that will, who knows? I did it
You're
again.
fine.
Who knows where that will take you, right? Like I never anticipated to be mayor. I never anticipated to be on this political journey. It literally just happened.
There is no age. Like it's because some people think, well, you have to be later on when you have more time, or some people think, you have to have more experience. If you have the passion and the knowledge and you're smart to, depending on the position you're taking, you can do this. You can run just for your own town, on committees. You can do all kinds of stuff.
The beauty of democracy is that anybody can run for office. It's also the most terrifying thing about democracy too. That's what I say.
Some interesting people out there.
Well, then you look at some of the people that end up getting elected, and it causes for concern.
Yeah, especially as reps.
Oh,
All right, let's dive into these questions.
Yeah, sure.
I think Michelle's opening with the first one.
Yes. So the very first question is, what made this the right moment for you to run for governor in Connecticut?
I don't know.
I know you did prior. You put it out there.
I did. So I ran in 2018. I kind of dipped my toe in the water in 2018. There was about 50 other Republican candidates for governor at that point. So it was one of those, what the hell do you have to lose type thing? See if people are interested in a different kind of leader like myself. I don't fit the mold that a lot of, what you would think politicians fit. Suppose it's the way I carry myself. I don't really I'm not a very scripted person. It just, you get authenticity from me. And that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, which is fine. It allows me to sleep at night, but this is a different story. So I don't know that there is necessarily a right time. And I don't think that there ever is really a right time in politics. How do you feel? Like, is that passion there? Is that gut feeling there? Is that fire there? And what I felt in 2018 has only grown to today. Now I sat out a couple cycles too. Everyone thought that I would run for the next cycle, and I was like, no, I'm good. I didn't feel it. I didn't have that passion. And then this time around, I just feel like people are constantly saying to me, why would you want to run against Ned Lamont? He's so popular. This is not. I'm like, yeah, well, I don't believe that. Not for 1 second. I don't think this guy is as popular as what people think. I just think that the Republican Party hasn't given our electorate a better option. And I think that person is me. So I don't know if it's the fire in your own belly. That's what it is. That's what makes it at the right time.
No, absolutely. Yeah. You have to feel it, because otherwise you're not giving it your all.
Right.
So absolutely. I can get that.
What is something about voters don't usually hear about you on the campaign trail?
Something they don't usually hear about me on the campaign trail? I don't know, because I literally am the type of person that puts everything out there. You ask, I'm going to tell it. So I don't shy away from any of that. If I had to think one thing they don't usually hear, maybe about my life at home, I suppose, who my husband is. I have 2 kids. I got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. Our life is insanity
Crazy.
right now.
Yes.
My husband, he doesn't, I don't want to say he doesn't like politics. He's certainly not a political person at all. So I'd say probably most about him. People are always asking me about him, sidebar, what does your husband do? They're like, is he a lawyer? I'm like, yeah, no, he's a public works guy. He drives a plow truck. But, it's not what people think. So that's probably something that they don't hear.
Has living and working in Connecticut shaped your political values?
Yeah. I mean, it's given me, you got to think about where I grew up too, in the city of New Britain, in a very diverse community, and a very, low income community too, in a city in Connecticut. That's definitely shaped my values and given me a different perspective on the state, as a whole. So when I talk a lot about Connecticut being Connecticut is an interesting place. Let's just throw that out there. You have haves and you have the have-nots. And those disparities can't be any clearer when you're looking at the Connecticut urban centers and urban areas, as opposed to some of the richest areas in the entire country. So from that perspective, yes, it's absolutely shaped my values and who I am, because it's given me, I'll say, a more broader perspective on the
Okay.
different types of lives that are lived here, and I take that with me every day. I mean, and I grew up in like I'll say a lower middle class, household. There was nothing special about that. If you had brand name cereal, that was like a big week. But like I think of when I went off to college at UConn, right? Like I had friends that it gave like so much perspective on the different types of communities across our state, and I think that makes me a better person too, because I can look at things from a different world.
Okay. All right.
That was kind of the next question too. So go to vision and leadership and
Okay. When you picture Connecticut 4 years from now, what's different if you're governor?
Everything. Literally everything. This is going to sound trivial, but what I would hope is that when we win this and we move forward on changing our state, that people are looking at the state of Connecticut in a completely different light than they're looking at today. I would hope that they're looking at Connecticut with confidence for its future and talking more positively about the things that we have to offer here. We all know we live in a beautiful state. We're very lucky to live, I'll say landscape wise, where we live. However, nobody has anything good to say about it because they don't trust their leaders, because they don't feel that there's a good vision or a direction for where the state is going. So I'd hope that, after 4 years of Erin Stewart administration, that people would have good things to say.
Okay.
So what do you think Connecticut does really well and they don't get enough credit for?
What do I think Connecticut does really well and doesn't get enough credit for? Gosh, where do I want to? I hate to say this and I hate to sound so dismal, but like, what does our government do that is good? I don't know, because I've only ever heard everybody complaining about it. From the Department of Motor Vehicles to the attack on gun rights and gun owners to the lack of support for public school systems. I mean, even, I was a member of the Connecticut Board of Regents for higher education. And even like the discrepancies that I see in the lack of support for higher education, it's like I can't even point to a good thing. I'd love to say like our public parks and our public spaces, but even then I still look at that and think of things that I would change with them too, because they have like hours for no one, and they
and we pay for that,
right?
Yeah.
And we pay for something we can't even use. So, I mean, I hate to be so dismal, but I guess I suppose that's why I'm running, right?
Yep. No, that
I think
works.
my answer would be they tax us to death. They do that really well.
Oh God.
But they get credit for that too. So.
Well, I know. Yeah.
We do. Yeah.
Every little thing is taxed.
Yeah.
I think we'll get into that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
A little later.
What's the biggest myth about Connecticut politics that frustrates you?
The biggest myth about Connecticut politics that frustrates me. that it's easy to get elected. I know. I'm just like thinking off the cuff, like yeah. I mean, it is so hard to, a lot of people think that you run for office and that like everybody just flocks to you because you're running for office, or that all of a sudden like the floodgates open and everyone's just like donating all this money to you. Like that is such a huge myth.
We're in the wrong party.
Yeah, well, I know. I know.
Well, that's because the state funds their own party.
So I think that's a big thing.
Okay.
What is the biggest problem in the state that people are not talking enough about?
Biggest problem in the state people are not talking enough about.
So something maybe that you know about that's not super out there.
I know. And I know we're on like a two-way podcast, but like I always go back to the problems plaguing the education system in our state, because that is something that is really, it's important to me. I mean, I would say the discrepancy and the disparities within the funding and how funding is distributed for our education systems. To give an example, in 2013, when I became mayor of New Britain, that was the last time that there was a change in the baseline education cost sharing grant formula across our state. So since that day, however many years ago that was, 13 years ago at this point, the state has not given any more money into the education cost sharing grant formula that all of our cities and towns pay for our public education systems through. That is complete, without swearing, it's ridiculous.
We're in budget season right now, and we just got ours presented for Southington, and
And when you look at
It's fun times.
right, but you look at how much of your local budget is going to your education system. It's surpassing 50, 60, almost 70% in some of like
It's about
these
the
small
numbers.
towns. And it's crazy to think that the taxpayers, when the state should be providing this resource and should be doing its part to equalize the grant formulas, they haven't done it, haven't touched it in years, and no one's said anything. So the frustrating part for me is that it's all based off of who you know. Depends on how much additional money you get in that year. So if you have really active state representatives, or if you have, people that represent you that are really good friends with the governor or with the speaker of the house, all of a sudden you guys are getting millions more, but towns like Wolcott or Southington are getting screwed.
And we have Chris Poulos is a Democrat, and he's the 81st district, which encompasses most of Southington's House.
Yes.
And I think the final numbers come out the end of this month. You have to approve our budget by May, but it's
and that's
even on that political party, it's still
right.
Interesting. So I guess on a side note on that, when you were mayor for 12 years,
we're manifesting.
How were your House seats and Senate seats broken up through that time, if you recall?
So all Democrat, except for New Britain had a sliver of Plainville in one of its House districts. So we had Dr. Pettit that would he had maybe had to be like a dozen streets in New Britain.
Yeah, we have
really like that
part of Plainville has that in Southington on that side. They have like a little chunk.
Yeah. Gerrymandering, whatever.
Yeah.
But so it was all Democrats all the time. And it was frustrating when you don't. Dr. Pettit was like the only one that I would like call and work with. But I would always, open lines of communication, send these guys everything. And I felt my frustration was that I always had to go past them and advocate myself as mayor. Mm-hmm. So I was always going past them to ask whoever the governor was for help or additional funding myself, and kind of bypassing them, which frustrated them, but it wasn't my fault that they weren't effective. Yeah. And if they weren't going to be effective, like, your job as mayor is to advocate for your community and do what you have to do. So I would stand up there with my hand out just like everybody else, because how else would you get anything in the state when the way the system that they've created is just so inequitable? That's the only way you can do it. So they used to get pissed because I would go right to the governor's office without them. Whatever. You got to do what you got to do. That's called, doing your best when you're a representative and you're elected to lead. You have to do it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that means you got to work with people from opposite parties too.
Yeah.
Well, you have to.
You have to.
And at the end of the day, I truly believe having the two parties work together gives you a better result.
It does.
As long as they're willing to work.
But that's the key.
That's the problem today.
Correct. Yeah. That's the key, is you have to work together. It can't be, I don't want to talk to you. No, you stay out. We'll make the decisions and let you know what it is. That doesn't work.
From our standpoint with CUA, that's how it is on judiciary all the time.
Yes. Well, they're not
even interested in hearing what you have to say. That's the problem. And then they shut you all out, or they cut off public participation, or they cap it, which is
even if
ridiculous.
Even if you get to go and do testimony, 90% of them, because 90% are not the ones that want to listen to us, don't even sit in the room.
No.
They're gone.
Oh yeah.
Or they sit on their phone the whole time. So you're talking to a blank audience.
And so frustrating.
And then they go, well, we gave you the right to speak. To who?
To no one.
Yeah. There was one point.
I could talk at the wall. Thanks.
Yes, right.
For HB 5043, which is just past judiciary and will be headed to the House floor at some point. There was just the chairperson in the room. There was no one else.
It's disgusting.
And I'm like, where the heck is everyone?
So, and then after you've waited hours on end.
Oh, there were people talking
to do this, to testify. You get there and you're talking to an empty room. It's so insulting.
It is. Yeah. And it wasn't.
And they all have the same excuse, right? They're always like,
well, we have lots of committees.
Yeah, we're on multiple committees.
But they're all gone at the same time.
Well, then you walk out the door to go to the bathroom and they're there.
They're all shooting the shit with lobbyists.
Yeah.
And it's gotten worse and worse and worse over my time of going up. Yes. I've seen it just true disrespect.
Yes. Yep.
Because they have the power. They don't care.
Well, Blumenthal Jr. is on judiciary, and I was there for 90% of the testimony, and he was on his phone the entire time he was in that room. He said one thing in the beginning and then sat there on his phone the entire time.
And didn't pay attention to what anybody was saying.
Yeah, no.
They don't, like, can you show? It's
just don't be in the room at that point.
And it's like, can you just pretend to care? But
Right.
how insulting is that, though?
Well, at least
Like,
that's the chairs, right? They
Yeah,
pretend to listen to you at least
sure.
because they're calling your name. So, like, I guess they have to pay attention to
They
that,
have to.
right?
Kind of.
And that's why people don't participate in the process, though.
Yep.
And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, why people think that their vote doesn't matter. And it's just
Correct.
kind of like this cycle of suck that we're in, where the people and those that are voting or not voting, they just
Right.
feel that no one listens to them and no one cares. I mean, I would like to think that if I would like to give people hope that that will change with a different leader, right? I'm not too good to listen to what anybody has to say. And I think that's, it's just a stick in the eye for people. I hate that. That's why people hate politicians.
Yes.
It's exactly why they hate them. So like when I was mayor, I never shied away from having these difficult conversations with people that I disagreed with. I would bring them in and I would say to everybody, like, you can have a seat at my table. Come on, like, come in. I would have open office hours for mayor open office hours. You would meet directly with me. I'll give you, depending on how many people were there, it's like, you want 10 minutes to, tell me what you have to tell me. Let's have a quick conversation. I would get like a lot of people that would show up though. And then I would start them at 5 o'clock at night and it's like 9 o'clock. I'm like, okay, I gotta go home now. Like, I'm really sorry. But that's good. But for me, it was always good too, because as a leader and in that position, it gave me perspective into what was really on the minds of people too. And you can't just be in this, you can't put yourself in this box where you're not listening and you're not even trying to understand how someone else feels about an issue. It's just something that always, it bothers me because I know that so many people up there, all the Democrats, like, they don't care.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
No.
Ned doesn't care.
No.
The states, especially the state senators, don't. And the Democrats are the ones I'm talking about here. Don't care.
Sure.
The reps might.
Because
it really depends on
they're
what
so,
district they're in, though. Like,
they're so drunk on power.
They only
that
care.
They don't think they have to care.
Wait, they only care if they have a formidable opponent that they, feel is forcing them to care.
Correct.
Which is sad.
So let me, because I want to get through these because I know we're on a time frame.
Yeah.
So what does leadership mean to you when the state is in crisis?
It's kind of like what we just touched on. And the state is in crisis because you have leaders that don't care, leaders that don't listen, leaders that, get back in their chauffeured cars and get driven back to their beautiful multi-gajillion-dollar homes, disconnected from reality. Leadership is having someone that's not only willing to listen, but willing to act based off upon what people are asking for. Listen, when you're in a leadership position, sometimes it's not necessarily what you think is best, right? So when you're representing,
you gotta listen to everybody you're representing,
right? And you have to know and understand. Listen, there were things that I did as mayor that I didn't think was best, but my community that I represented really wanted that done. And there were times when I didn't do that, like, not removing the Christopher Columbus statue or, things like that. But like some guy the other night, we were at an event and he tried to hit me with this like gotcha question and at this event in Madison. And he's like, do you regret declaring, racism as a public health crisis? And I said to him, I was like, such a random question. And I'm like, are you like a secret member of the New Britain Democratic Town Committee? I'm like, but that's an example of me letting something get passed at a city council level that was really not impactful, but maybe something that I didn't necessarily agree with 100%, but it was important to people at the time and the people that I represented. So I wasn't going to say like, no, it also didn't cost the city any money and it wasn't going to really like infringe on anything that I was trying to do. But, just an example of why leaders should be responsive and lead and
listen.
Yeah, well, those times,
and I'd like
in
to
general,
think,
like to pick your battles, right?
Yeah.
So, and especially from the financial aspect, just because that's where my brain has been at and will be for the next month and a half.
Yeah,
I get that.
Yeah. What's the you want to lower taxes or you want to do some things to improve quality of life or what's the
just give and take.
There is. And I would like to think that, in this race for governor, I'm the only person who has been in an executive leadership position like that who has had to make those difficult decisions. Something that sets me apart.
So on that, what makes you a better candidate for Connecticut? Like views you difference on than other candidates?
Like exactly that.
So.
I think it's the most obvious thing that my leadership experience as being an executive of a municipality in the state and a struggling municipality at that is what sets me apart from the other candidates too. Having to, negotiate and having to do that give and take that we talked about. but at the same time holding true to my morals and values too, that help shape me, are that's what sets me apart from the others, hands down.
Okay.
So now we're going to dive into the 2A issues.
Yeah, sure.
Because that's what the podcast is
Yeah.
actually about. So how do you personally interpret the Second Amendment, and how should that right apply in a state like Connecticut, where we have some of the most strictest gun laws in the entire country?
Shall not be infringed. Let's just start there. And, listen, I'm a owner, right? My husband and I are gun owners. I'm not I would never describe myself as like a gun enthusiast, although they are exciting and it is fun. But
it's not your everyday.
It's not.
Michelle and I.
I mean, well, it's with me every day. Let's put it that way. And I think I'm the only candidate that, and I've never, and it's been like that for years, but I've never really like advertised it or talked about it. And I think that might be why people are so like, oh, we're not really sure how she feels about guns. I don't talk about it, right? But I have my little guys always on me. It's in my bag right now, because I also I believe in the Second Amendment for my right to defend myself, for also our right to defend ourselves against a tyrannical government, which is the impetus behind Second Amendment in the begin with.
In Connecticut.
Well, scary, right? I know. But I never, it was never a conversation that was ever at the forefront in my time as
And it
mayor.
doesn't have to be for a lot of people.
No.
It's a lot of people. Like, I grew up in a family that always had firearms.
Yeah.
But it was never discussed. You don't advertise, you don't talk about it. Unfortunately, my views personally have changed drastically.
Sure.
Over the last X amount of years, because being quiet means I lose my rights. And even though I keep losing every year and I have to show that I am a law-abiding citizen and you still keep ripping away pieces of my rights, I do believe that if I stay quiet, I will lose more faster. So that has changed me, because again, and I know there's a lot of people that carry that don't talk about it, don't have anything. I just think being louder, or even if you're going to be quiet, and because gun owners are our own worst enemies, we don't pay attention to what the laws are. And if it doesn't affect us personally, then it doesn't matter.
How do you know? I mean, not for nothing. Let's just, I'll give a very personal story right now. So my husband and I go shooting yesterday, right? We're downstairs and we're looking through, the gun safe and everything that we have. And then you're looking at some of the stuff you have that's old, and you're like, okay, can you have this? Can you not? Do you not know?
It's a matter of paying attention every year during legislative session.
And for not everyday gun people what we are, how do you keep track of that? But especially when every single year this legislature decides that they're going to target gun owners in some type of additional ridiculous way that makes no sense. They
call it Gun Day at the Capitol.
I know.
That's
a Glock
insane.
ban? Yep. What are we doing?
Glock, that's also the most commonly used handgun,
but it's
possibly in the world.
No. Right. But wait. It is not a Glock ban.
I'm sorry.
It's a prohibition on future sales.
That was her wording. And that, I think, got audible laughing in the room.
That's what they have
as not an
it.
everyday gun person, I even know that this is ridiculous and makes no sense.
Well, and it violates law too, right? You have, was that the Heller decision?
Commonly used. And Bruin.
Yep.
Because it's firearms within common use.
And a Glock, like I said, is probably in the world, but we'll just say America.
Sure.
The most common handgun on the market.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we're going to go ban it in Connecticut arbitrarily. Just because somebody feels a certain way.
Only if it's a convertible pistol version.
We're not going to go down that rabbit hole.
So, all right. So the next question is, which Connecticut gun laws go too far in your view?
Yeah. Well, those.
And are there any that you would keep in place as a governor?
The ones we just talked about, because it's every year, it's just something new that is just so nuanced. Listen, I'm my husband would kill me but I don't think that, unless you change the legislature, let's be real here. Let's be frank. Unless you elect a Republican governor, and unless you elect Republicans to take control of at least one branch of government, whether it's you need the governor and you need legislature, you need the House or the Senate.
Yeah, one of the chambers.
Nothing's going to change, which is very frustrating. You take the governorship, I can promise you that as governor, I certainly would never sign anything that infringes on our rights more, because while I'm not, as into this as you are, I'm still an owner and still want that right, and still want the right to protect my family and my house, and to go out to the range and have fun.
Yeah.
And
and
enjoy
you
it.
shouldn't be penalizing law-abiding citizens for the actions of criminals. We hear it all the time in this country, in this state. You can't, whether it be race, whether it be a certain entity, you can't blame the mass for the actions of a few, except if you're in guns. If it has to do with guns, then we make everybody pay the price for the action of a few.
Sure.
So,
or in homeschooling too, for that matter, right now.
Very hypocritical.
Very much so. I mean, they punish a whole group of people for something that, I was mayor of an urban center. There's crime. Yes. There's violent crime. We had a lot of shootings. We had a lot of, I've dealt with homicides before. I've dealt with a lot of terrible things. I will tell you that 9 out of 10 times when we were dealing with these violent criminals, do you think that gun was legal or registered? No, it never is. And I know, we have some questions about this, but why are we not going after all of the illegal guns that are being sold out of corner stores and bodegas with, the serial numbers that are all scratched off? Why? They defund the illegal gun task force that the state police used to have. And so and my police department used to always laugh at me, because every time we would have a crime that involved a weapon, I would ask the same question. Was it registered? Was it legal? And they all look at me and they're like, Mayor, you know the answer. I'm like, I just want to verify from you guys that I was right in assuming that it was an illegal weapon.
And yes, and they are. It's the same with this whole Glock thing. They want to do it so you can't use a Glock switch and all this.
Glock switch is already illegal federally, state.
Yes, that's right.
Law-abiding citizens aren't buying a Glock to put a Glock switch in it. We just don't do it. That's not. It's already, we're law-abiding. That's the key word.
Right. Yeah.
And criminals, even when they continue to pass these laws that now law-abiding citizens will follow, still aren't going to follow the law. They're still going to have Glocks.
Well, that's right.
They don't prosecute the criminals.
Well, there's another problem.
If you follow a case, and you could pick any arbitrary case that involved a gun, that gun charge gets dropped. And there's federal mandates and those get dropped. And that's obviously, the federal stuff is not the Connecticut problem. Well, Connecticut
but it is a
influenced.
For sure. However, though,
that's a problem.
When you look at the people who you have in our court system, the judges that are appointed by governors and by the legislature, and the values that they hold to, that's part of the problem too. It's the people that you put on the bench. Criminals get away with everything here. Yeah. A slap on the wrist for some of the most ridiculous crimes.
So they can refund?
Crazy. Yep. Well, and then do it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times and still never end up in prison.
Yeah.
With short stints.
Short stints.
Oh, yeah.
Well, 6 months
they visit.
Well, 4 months.
Crazy.
All right.
There's no deterrent to being a bad person here.
Yeah.
No.
How do you respond to voters who see gun restrictions as necessary for public safety?
Yes.
So
so if you're a governor and you're hearing from the
anti-guns
CIGVs. Lobbies, the big groups that are writing these laws.
Yeah.
How do you respond to them?
By saying no? Is that too simple?
No.
Is that too simple?
More than what Ned does. So.
I mean, listen, but to what we talked about before, I would hear them out, give them the space to talk to me about why. But at my heart and at my core, I don't think that I would ever say, yeah, sure, let's do that.
Okay.
I think that we've done enough.
Okay.
We've done enough. And unless it talks about, again, like I said, unless some type of legislation wants to talk about, penalizing those that are illegal gun owners that are committing these crimes, then I don't.
Stricter enforcement, which is what the Democrats keep voting no to.
Here's going to be a simple.
That's mean you'd have to figure out how to enforce the laws that you have to begin with, which they can't even figure out. They keep passing all these laws. They don't even know how to enforce them.
And they don't fund it. They don't.
That's right.
There's no funding to follow these. Yes.
It's all based off of feelings. I'm going to do this because it makes people feel good. I don't like that. I don't subscribe to that.
Yeah.
Like, it's all, I'm preaching to the choir.
Yes.
I know that. But, when you passing laws is not to make people feel good. It's so that you can actually, implement them and make a difference, not to placate or pander to a certain group of people and say, oh, but we did this.
So if you're layering law upon law that basically say the same thing, but we're just making
Yes.
them stricter, but we're still not enforcing any of it. Doesn't make sense.
It's just to be able to say to their constituencies,
We
"Oh,
did this.
It's gun day. We
Yes,
did this."
we did something. So, and we answered this question, but we're going to go throw it in there. Do Connecticut current gun laws focus enough on violent offenders, or do they end up criminalizing the law-abiding gun owners?
No, they don't focus enough on violent offenders, and it does penalize us. Yes.
That was
Unfairly.
a simple question, simple
Yes.
answer, but it was in here. So,
Oh, yeah.
So the next question is, why should Connecticut gun owners trust you? And why should people who support stricter gun laws trust you as a governor? So it's a duel.
So, you should trust me because I am one. I'm speaking from that. I'm coming at this from the experience of being an owner. That's for certain. So I think that's hands down why you should trust me. I would always think about the law-abiding gun owners that we have in the state, that's going to be in the back of my mind if anything were to ever come across my desk. And I can tell you unequivocally that I wouldn't sign anything that was a continued infringement upon our rights to own and to protect our families. That's all right. What was the second part of the question?
Why should people who support stricter gun laws trust you?
So on the other side of the coin.
So can we talk about common sense for a second? Like,
I think that's lacking in most of society,
holy,
unfortunately.
I mean, Christ, but and that's for the same reason why, I just come at this with common sense. So I think
that's a bad word, though. Nobody understands that.
Oh, well, I know. Well, but that's also why I don't fit in these circles, and why I don't fit in Hartford, and why I'm not getting all of these endorsements from all of these state reps and state senators and all these people that are ingrained up there, because I just look at things so differently than they do. Like, remove yourself from that bubble that is the Golden Dome, and look at what everyday people in Connecticut are experiencing, going through, and dealing with. And so for the same reasons why gun owners should trust me, those that are, and I'll say those that don't own guns, but yet I would like to think are respectful of people's rights to have them and understand that, should trust me too, because I just look at this from a common sense approach of what makes most sense, and leaves people alone and just let people be. I hate when, I'm not a big government person. Okay. This is fundamental Republican values. I'm not a big government person. I don't think that government should be in every aspect of our lives. Let us be, let us live our lives. It's very libertarian of me. I know, but and I don't think that they should be making laws for every little thing either. I think,
and they do that really well up in Hartford.
Really, they do. And that's one thing that I'd like to change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Going into policy. So if you could fix one thing, one issue, budget, housing, education, public safety, what would it be and why? So just one. You get a magic wand and boom.
I would go to education with what I talked about before, because I do think that we talked about Connecticut being the land of haves and have-nots, and no more is that more prevalent than in our public school systems across the state. So one thing to change, it would be fixing the education cost sharing grant and the distribution of education funding for our public school systems throughout the state, and also providing support for non-public schools too. I think that, charter schools and magnet schools and even, parochial schools support are very, very important for our kids, and providing options to parents. In the city that I led, we had a school system that struggled desperately, and it still does. And money is not going to solve a lot of the problems that plague a lot of the children in that school system. There's a lot of societal problems that the school district should never be responsible for fixing, but yet the state believes that it should fall on them. A lot of mental health supports that are needed desperately. I could talk about this topic for a while, but I think, if parents had the choice to send their kid to a better school, they absolutely would. And I think that should be an option for families that live in failing school districts.
I just want to follow up with that. and get a little bit of clarity, because I understand what you're saying as far as
Yeah.
the education and all that. But what does that look like for you? For more funding to do what?
It's not more funding. It's, I'll say, redistribution of funding so that it goes towards districts with most need that are failing. And that is not always urban centers,
No.
right?
So what's the need that you're talking about, though? Is it teachers? Is it bodies? Is it curriculum? Is it, where are you
Facilities.
looking? Yes,
It could be any of that. And that's based off of what your local school districts are going to deem necessary. But I don't think it's not adding necessarily more money into, throwing more money doesn't always solve the problems. But what we do know, and like, let the city of Hartford right now, they've got a massive school district and they have so many elementary schools, but yet some of the schools only have like 200 kids in them. Why are we still operating with all of these buildings? Why are these open? Why aren't you consolidating so that you can provide a better service? Oftentimes we get so stuck in the way this is the way things are. This is the way things have to be. We can't change. People are desperately afraid of change. Well, if you restructured the funding mechanisms, then districts and towns would be forced to have to change the way that they do things and add different measures of support for producing those reading scores, or making sure that kids are not graduating without knowing how to read or write or math.
Okay.
But a lot of that comes from, again, somebody leading us that has a different philosophy on education. And in a perfect world, I'd love to see money follows the child be an approach, so that you could choose wherever you want to send your kid to school, and that your child would go with the money that goes with them. That would really empower charter schools and inter district magnet schools and also parochial schools too. And it would allow more competition, so that all of our schools would have to perform better. Everybody would have to rise to the top.
Okay.
But I don't know how realistic money follows the child actually is in Connecticut. And again, unless you change the legislature too.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Okay. What's a tough but necessary decision you think the next governor will have to make?
I will say,
In regards to like policy here.
yeah, I will say trying to figure out what to do with the dismantling of the fiscal guardrails that were put in place. So in 2018, the last time that we had a close Senate, this was when the fiscal guardrails were put in place. And as we've watched these guardrails deplete year after year, session after session.
Well, we still give Ned his emergency COVID powers.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, it's 2026. What?
Oh, they still live in COVID era.
There are still variants out there. Come on. Yes.
I think they just started using like Transformer names now.
They just aren't using
Optimus Prime, something like that. Well, what was Omicron, right? That was like a Transformer or something, I think.
That's right.
That's a damn flu. Let's get over it.
Yeah, I feel that right now. I might have it right now. I'm gonna lie. The headache, the fever. But yeah, I think figuring out what to do with the guardrails and how to how do you put them back once they've been broken. The next governor is gonna have to figure out how are we putting them back together. If that's something that they want to do, it's something I certainly want to do, because I think spending our taxpayer dollars wisely is very important.
That would be nice. We pay a lot. I would like it done wisely.
Yeah.
Maybe we could stop some of the lawsuits too that are costing us that I didn't ask to do.
Yeah,
Just saying.
It's fair.
You mean by good old Tong?
Yeah.
Mr. Trump every day?
See, every day.
Mr. TikTok.
It's literally a joke.
And I'm like,
It's a joke
what are
at
you
this
doing,
point.
dude?
It's like, oh, you found another thing to sue for. Yay.
So as a Republican, I'm going to combine these two.
Sure.
How do you plan on governing effectively in a predominantly Democratic state, and House and Senate?
Yeah.
And then also, how do you appeal to those independent and moderate voters who might be skeptical of both parties?
Sure. So, I mean, you govern in a predominantly Democrat state by just being an open person that's willing to have conversations with people and develop relationships. That's what this is all about. You can't be afraid to talk to someone. You can't box people out, but you also have to develop those relationships too. Are you staring at the spider? Because
Yes.
I'm staring at it too.
There's a spider.
Yeah, it's like
It's
right
kind of
behind
behind
your
you.
head.
After our spider break there. So how do you appeal to the independent and moderate voter who are skeptical of both parties?
So I think that's the key here of how Republicans are going to have to win in November, is to appeal to the independents and moderates that don't necessarily, feel one way or the other. And what is the wedge issue that is the bridge that's gonna bring them over. And I look at telling my story of how I managed the finances in the city of New Britain, and how I led the city of New Britain as my wedge issue to bring people over. Because I think that at the end of the day, what is the one thing that matters to people the most? It's pocketbook issues, it's cost of living, it's affordability. And that's going to attract and appeal to people that are beyond parties here. It's going to appeal to people that are beyond parties. Who's the candidate that's going to make my life easier and more affordable in Connecticut? And that's me. Certainly not Ned.
Not Ned.
Not Ned.
No.
And
doing
you know
the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity.
Connecticut resident?
Right?
Republican Party? Connecticut Republican Party?
Democrats. They're so pissed about their electric bill, but they still keep voting it in. Hello.
And I think, well, to talk about all Republican friends here, I mean, like, that's incumbent on us too, right? That they're doing that because we haven't shown them a better way with somebody that they feel confident in crossing over and voting for. So they're complacent with voting for someone like Ned, who they know is going to continue to do this stuff, because we haven't, as our party, given somebody a better option that they felt comfortable checking that box going across the line for. And I would hope that my history, my story, and my service as mayor would be that bridge to bring people over.
So I like Stepanowski version 1. The first time, I think, when you dipped your toe in, you said,
yeah,
was that the time?
No, yeah, but that was 2018.
And Markley was from town here, who ran as lieutenant governor. And that was actually like when I started paying attention into politics.
Oh, sure.
Stepanowski version 2, I thought was a train wreck. And probably wasn't paying as much as attention into that. That would have been 2022. So you still had COVID crap going on, or the tail end of that. And it is nice to see, we'll say, competition. And I think
probably doesn't like
it.
it.
But I think there's two choices, right? For the most part.
Three.
There's
2.5.
Well, Josh Elliott's trying to primary Ned, right?
Yes. So far.
Mr. House Rep. Anyways, he's funny on TikTok too. If you ever guys want to laugh,
because
him and Tong really compete in TikTok.
Ned's not progressive enough, so we need Elliott.
Yes, right. There you go.
That's scary. That's just
Scary.
scary.
Well, welcome to the convention process, right? And so that's where you get your party insiders, the people that are really on the fringes of the party that make that up. And that's why Josh Elliott may do better than what people expect in the Democratic convention.
I think he will, personally. I think he's got more of a chance than people are giving him credit for.
Where do they hold theirs?
I don't know where they're doing theirs. I don't know.
Well, I think it's still up.
We'll both be at Mohegan.
Great.
I think it's up at
Me
Mohegan.
too.
But I think it's just different dates.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't assume they do.
Obviously. But no, I think they do theirs at Mohegan also. But it's weird because they used to do it at Foxwoods.
I don't think so. The last time they did theirs, I remember they had it in like an old abandoned factory building.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Yeah.
Little backroom deals going on.
Oh, I'm
probably.
sure. Yeah, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean,
never been to one of those, so I don't know. I've been to lots of Republican.
Yeah.
I like Mohegan. They take some of my money sometimes, but
That's okay.
They got good food.
I'm happy it's a Mohegan versus Foxwoods.
Yeah.
I like Mohegan better, but anyway, different topic.
Lock and Load Podcast endorses Mohegan.
Day.
Foxwoods, you know what? You got to do a little better.
So the next question we have has to do with taxes, economy, jobs, and cost of living. Why do people feel like they're working harder but falling further behind in this state? Or in your opinion?
In my opinion. But that's because
they are.
They are, right? I mean, they are. They're working harder. They're falling further behind. I'm one of them. Like, I'm unemployed right now. Okay. Mm-hmm. And people don't, again, this is something that sets me apart from everybody else. When I term limited myself from being mayor, I didn't like have another job that I was walking into. I felt really passionately about this and doing this, and we're making a big sacrifice in my family and my household to do this for good reason, because we believe in the future of the state. But people are working harder and not keeping their head above water because the cost of everything continues to rise. I'll say, yes, we can talk about gas prices and food prices, and a lot of that, is because of national issues. However, let's talk about what's increasing the cost of life here in our cities and our towns. It's our local property taxes. I mean, that's probably the biggest, most egregious that I'll say. Every budget that's coming out and every town across the board, you're seeing, 7, 8, 9% increases that are being proposed.
Yeah, we're fighting to get ours down, and Board of Finance just passed Southington's to now town council, and now we have to go through it. And the initial proposal was very high from.
But even if you want to talk about fuel and gas, you can also bring it back to Connecticut, because the amount of taxes on top of
that's right
that Connecticut does.
Well, Ned was going to go give you a fuel tax break. He talked about it, and then it went off into the distance and disappeared.
Well, it's not quite time. Wait till closer to election.
Okay.
But it's not going to help me.
You're right. He talks about it, they dangle it, and then they don't do anything about it. Yeah. But it's because they can't sympathize with working class Connecticut. They can't empathize with us because they don't understand it. Because to them, this guy makes a $500,000 every Saturday morning to literally open his eyes.
But
I wouldn't even like.
Oh, and his wife.
Here's
that.
Yeah, his wife makes a ton of money.
But see, I feel a little different about that. Okay, I think you can make as much money on earth as you could never spend it in your lifetime. But I do think you can still relate and listen to the people who aren't making that. I truly believe that.
With people that are willing to do so, which
Correct.
What we've seen is
we hear all the time, they're rich, they're out of touch, they don't know. That's not true across the board. That's just a good answer for most people. They think, oh, well, they're rich, they don't understand. And I don't personally necessarily agree with that, because yes, they're not having the struggles, but if they're listening to their constituents, they can understand by listening.
They can.
The problem is they don't listen. So the answer isn't no that they're rich, it's they don't listen and they don't care.
If you lived it, you'd care more. That's the point.
True, but there's people too that have lived it and then gotten better, and the answer is, well, they're rich now, they don't get it. So it goes, I don't necessarily buy that answer personally, because I've seen a lot of people that have quite a bit of money, but actually help and try to do what they can.
When we're comparing it to like Ned here, I think he's shown
he doesn't
record.
Care, but it's not that he's rich. He doesn't care.
1 + 1 could equal 2.
Most of the legislators up there don't care and aren't living like the average Connecticut resident.
Yeah, they don't. So
because somehow they go in broke, but they have a lot of money after the fact.
I mean, Chris Murphy?
Well, that's federal, but I mean, look at Hartford. Gordon?
He started as a state rep and then state
There's
senator and then the
now.
5th congressional, and now he's a multimillionaire and started on planning and zoning.
Well, they do it just in Connecticut.
So Connecticut is often ranked one of the most expensive states to live in. Why is that? And how do we fix it? It's questions like they overlap a little bit.
They do. I mean, and it's all the added taxes and fees on everything that we have, and the constant pull and take from people more and more. I mean, that it's so much that when you have a government that's constantly money grabbing instead of figuring out how to save money and how to right size government and shrink the size of government, that it's going to continue to increase. How do you fix that? I mean, you got to grow the economy, right? It's the economy, stupid. I look at this as, when I was mayor, creating a stable and predictable business environment was probably one of the most important things that I could have done. And that's what business owners and potential business owners want to see. They want to see stability, but they want to know what's coming. So you do that by having leaders that are putting forth their vision, that are very clear in their vision for, the future of the state's economy, by reducing taxes or right sizing the government, by upending Department of Economic and Community Development in a way that will actually support local business owners. But stability and predictability is the easiest way, hands down, to let business owners and larger corporations thrive in a state. And that means that you have to have good open communication with them. you know, I have
Yeah.
a case in point here. Let's talk about Stanley Works leaving New Britain really quick. So you want to talk about my heart sinking into my feet when I heard that announcement. And I wasn't surprised by
Well,
the
they
news.
still have some here. The New Britain one's leaving. They still have, I think, 5 different buildings and facilities within Connecticut.
In New Britain, weren't
but
they?
yeah, the
I
New
think
Britain, they're going down to
I
Tennessee.
think my grandfather, who I never met,
Yeah.
worked there, and my mom can fact check that.
I have
But
people
So,
there now.
Frederick T. Stanley was the first mayor of the city of New Britain. They literally founded New Britain. And so, you know, they announced that they're leaving. And my question immediately to people that I know that work there was, what did the state do to try to get you to stay? And they were just like silent. I'm like, come on. But, you know, come on. Like, that is such a, you know, for a Fortune 500 company, Fortune 300 company that is rooted in a community like New Britain, that employs hundreds of people. These are good, well-paying jobs that are a necessity. They didn't even try. What does the matter with you?
well, so sidetracking, but still talking business. That's the gun industry in Connecticut.
Sure.
It used to be the gun manufacturer of the United States.
Oh, you don't have to tell me.
And
New Britain was a big piece of that.
Yes,
A
yes,
big
it was.
piece of that.
And like Colt has dwindled down to, I won't say nothing, but not a lot.
Yeah.
They got bought out anyways.
Ruger's gone.
Ruger's gone. They have an office. Whoop
Yeah.
de doo. Mossberg doesn't manufacture here. I think they build some parts here.
They do certain things.
They do certain
but
things.
not much.
Charter Arms. It's probably the only one I can come up with.
Yeah.
And then there's smaller ones, right? Like
Stag Arms is gone.
Yep, they went to Wisconsin, I think.
Yeah.
And they got bought a few times.
Well, right. You've got Connecticut Shotgun and you've got Standard Manufacturing in New Britain. So
And they're still doing their thing, but they're a niche-y.
Yeah, both those are very
and that's
niche.
not a bad. I don't mean bad niche-y. They have their niche they work and they're great at.
They're fun to visit.
I know. I love those
I
guys.
love it so much.
And you have small ones. That's the cool thing about like this industry that I'm in is besides Cabela's / Bass Pro, you don't have Walmarts and Targets and
There's not
Home
big
Depots.
box. You have
Mom and pop shops or smaller shops. There's no like, you know, somebody may own 1 or 2 or 3 maybe. Not that I can really recall off the top of my head, but most of them are, you know, they're small owned stores, which is
family owned.
Yeah. Weird niche in a business like community, but they've driven us out.
It's a benefit to the state because we're even the mom and pops. We're making jobs for everybody else, you know, for our employees and for us in general. We're, you know, bringing in sales tax on a regular basis, you know, get that. You know, yet we still get our fees go up, you know, our annual report, which I think is awesome, is not an annual report. It's just your fee to stay in business, but they call it, because first time I opened my shop and first time I got my annual report, I'm like, so I have to give the state my fiscals? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So how what part of my financials do I send to him? My accountant looks at me and goes, no, that's just your fee to stay in business. And I'm like, why do they call it an annual report? It's an annual fee. That's all it is. You got
to put your address on that. Gotta make sure that's updated. All right.
But you know what I'm saying.
So this kind of goes to the previous question, but what do you say to young professionals, and I'm going to say younger families, who feel priced out of staying in Connecticut?
Register Republican, vote for me, and watch.
Okay. Fair enough.
I think that's easy, simple, fair. I think it's disgusting, though, what young people in the state are going through trying to buy a home, try to stay here, even rent.
My daughter works for the state and can't afford an apartment.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
It's insane.
Interest rates are insane.
Huh?
Interest rates are insane. Mortgages are insane.
Oh, yeah.
Think about it this way. When your average home price, you know, let's say you're a young family, right? And you're looking for, just like a starter home, when that's like inching upwards of $400,000 for a starter home.
I have a raised ranch that I have a 10-month-old.
Yeah.
My wife and some dogs. We've outgrown our raised ranch.
There's a dog sled amount of dogs. Just saying.
Like it was $385,000 a couple of years ago, and and the interest rate was horrible, by the way.
Well, right.
It's insane.
But then what's your mortgage a month? Your mortgage a month is like what, $4,000?
About 3, but yeah. But
so when you
it's
want to
still
move up to
insane.
your next size house that you're growing, and like, how the heck can anybody do that?
Yeah, it's insane.
I live in about 1,000 square feet, and I thought that was my starter home 19 years ago. Still there.
Oh yeah, I gotta manage space better.
It's
we
a
all
hot
do.
mess.
Well, when you
Yeah,
have
it is.
kids too, forget about it. It only gets worse.
Yeah,
I hate
there's
to break it to
toys
you.
They bring a
everywhere.
lot
Everywhere.
of stuff.
Yeah.
There's
Yes.
stuff everywhere.
And he's doing the cruising phase now, so
Oh,
he's just
yeah.
like he's like standing and like holding on to things, dropping things, and I'm just like, it's fun. It's an adventure. Obviously, both of you know that.
Yes.
Next.
How do you balance tax relief with funding core services like education and infrastructure? So obviously we want to help the citizens with tax relief, and you hear about it, but then you also have to keep those services up. So in your opinion, what would you say?
You have to right size government. And I'm not saying you go in, and I'm not saying that means go in and fire everyone, but you've got to basically like Doge Connecticut. Look at, what are your needs versus your wants? What do you actually like? What's the core function, the core services that we need to provide? There's absolutely government waste that you can't convince any of us otherwise. There is government waste. When is the last time that we actually had somebody look at where that waste is? Now you have the state auditors. Yes, I get that, but they're paid for by the state and they get state benefits and they are products of the state. So
here, I found $1,000 sweep under the rug.
No, we need that.
That goes to this organization, this daycare.
Well, and that's
the
part
Quality
of it.
Leering Center.
Yes, Quality Leering Center.
I mean, not only looking at every state, in the infrastructure itself within the state employees and the departments and all that, but it also, how do you feel about looking at the special interest groups that are getting, millions?
Hands down, you have to look at that and invest. Look at what they found in Connecticut too. There's an article that just came out the other day about money that was going. It was like over $500,000 to all these different daycares that was unaccounted for. They couldn't figure out what it got used on.
Can you say Minnesota?
Yeah,
the Leering Center. But that's scary, but that's a reality. But we have a governor right now who is totally asleep at the wheel. Ned Lamont is an absentee landlord. There's no doubt about that. This guy, he lives in the house, but he's not paying attention. He's not paying attention to what's going on. He points his fingers and he tells everybody else around him, I'm not really sure. Go talk to this guy. He'll tell you what can be done. He'll tell you what's going to need to change. Not me. He takes no accountability for anything. I am not that type of person.
It's like the Joe Biden in Connecticut.
Yeah, I know. Sleepy
Doesn't know what's going on.
I describe him as
I
describe him to people as the shrug emoji. Like Ned Lamont, like that's exactly that's his
analogy.
That's his take. Oh, there's $600,000 missing from this nursery school. This guy will figure it out.
There goes a basketball team.
No.
So what would you change about how Connecticut attracts and keep businesses? And then how should the state balance attracting the businesses with protecting workers?
Attracting businesses and protecting workers, I don't think that that's a trade-off. I think that you have to be able to do both.
Yeah.
I don't think it's one or the other. I think you have to work together on that. And then to answer the other question, I think it's exactly what I talked about before, that stability and predictability and actually working with business owners and, again, listening to them and involving them at the table for decisions that are being made that are going to impact business owners throughout the state. Oftentimes you see that they make these decisions in this vacuum and there's no small business owners that are at the table when these decisions are being made. They're not even asking or listening in public hearings. But I think that you have to have
it's the same with gun bills. They pass stuff without talking to anyone in the industry. They just listen to the anti-gun groups, get their special interest groups. They tell them what they want in a bill. They don't talk to the other side and say, how does this affect you?
And it's so mind-blowing to me because at the end of the day, like, doesn't your ultimate goal, isn't it made better when you have all sides that are giving you their opinion?
Yeah. Balance
in government. A novel theory.
All right. So mine is the next one. So state government and fiscal responsibility. Connecticut has a history of budget challenges. What lessons should the next governor take from that? And where do you think the state governor wastes money? Or the state government. Not governor. Sorry, bad.
So we touched a little bit on this before. I think preserving the fiscal guardrails are very important. And I also talked about Doge in Connecticut, or a Doge type organization that's an outside entity that will come in and look at that. I think the reality is, though, that, you have the November election, the person who wins, pretty hopeful that it's me. You're not going to have enough time to do that by the time you have to present your first budget. Correct. So you really only have a couple of months before, actually not even, you have like a couple of weeks really before you have to present the first budget. So, I mean, it would certainly take some time that you would have to work on throughout the year. So I have to look at what's a stopgap measure that you would do first and foremost after you win. And that would be to tell every department, you've got to reduce by 5%. I don't care where you take it from, but you have to reduce by 5% across the board. I'm putting forth a budget that's going to reduce everything by 5%. You tell me where you think is best, and then we're going to take the next year to really dive in and start auditing and looking and right sizing and fixing and consolidating too, because I think there can be many opportunities there too. How many state employees do the same thing? And how many offices, and like that's just like speaks for everything. Like, that there's always that like one person in every office that you go to for everything because they're the worker.
Yeah.
And everybody else, sits there. Or how about the amount of people that aren't even in the office? They're working from their basement somewhere because we allow this, work from home type thing.
Yeah.
Well, because COVID.
I know a guy, oh my gosh, this is going to blow your mind. He's supposed to be a construction inspector for the state.
Yeah.
Works from home. Somebody please tell me how that works.
How do you inspect? I don't know. It's like concrete from.
Do you take pictures? Somebody sends it to
Yeah,
you?
because you can't take this side of the picture where this side's crumbling.
Well, no, because that doesn't matter.
Yeah. So there's one.
That's impressive.
See, that wouldn't work.
Part of me is like, good for him. If you've gotten, he screwed over the system, but like,
right. I mean, but
he's getting
blame the guy, blame the people that allow him to do that.
Yeah. And here's Ned, and here's Ned. And he just points to the commissioner and says, I don't know, take it up with this guy. I don't know. It's crazy.
The guy he appointed.
Yep.
Yes. Interesting. Interesting.
What's pick a program that you think should be reduced or eliminated, even if it's politically unpopular? Got any?
Or are there programs?
Or
do you have anything in mind that you know?
Oh, I mean, the public benefits charge. Can we start there? I mean, that's
probably not a controversial
That's
topic.
not unpopular. Okay.
Oh, you mean one that people like?
Possibly.
Oh. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is the public benefits charge. But you got to think about that too, because the public benefits charge also does pay for people who do need assistance on their electric bill. So there is a give and take here.
Or does it pay? Because I was under the impression it was during COVID time for all those people that didn't pay because they got a pass while we paid our bill. Now we're making up the difference now for them.
Well, I believe that was already done. And now it's funding
other programs.
It's funding other programs for like electricity assistance.
There certainly could be a portion in there, but I think there's so much crap in there.
Oh yeah.
That your phone, right? You used to on your cell phone, go look at your cell phone bill.
Yeah.
How many little 10 cents, 12 cents, 3 cents, 5 cents.
But at the end of the day,
the premise of the public benefits charge, though, don't forget, it was supposed to end in May of last year.
Correct.
Because everything was paid off.
Correct.
Because all those debts were paid off.
But it should not be double what your actual charge is.
It's ridiculous.
Well, what's also insane just with electricity in general is I use this much electricity, but I'm getting charged this much in supply.
Yeah.
Like
or delivery
what?
or whatever the heck
delivery.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have solar panels on my house.
Oh yeah.
So sometimes they work great. Sometimes they don't when it's cloudy.
Yeah.
But it's
I feel like
covered with snow.
I mean, just the cost of energy in Connecticut too is just ridiculous. I mean, like we have a nuclear power plant that generates a majority of the energy that supplies for our state, but we actually ship energy out. So like the state gets money to ship this energy that's back into the grid to send it to Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and then we're like shipping in Canadian energy. It makes no sense to anyone when we have the resources here in our state to produce Connecticut made energy here. And
well, look at Wallingford.
Well,
Wallingford is
the envy of everyone right now.
Why can't Connecticut do something like that? If Wallingford can do it, hello. But
and they have the gas pipeline too. I mean, natural gas is something that we desperately need access to. And now you have a public benefits charge on your Connecticut natural gas bill too.
And they're up in the water.
but we have nothing but no plans to expand the pipeline that's bring in additional natural gas to our state to then lower everybody's bill.
Right.
Foolish.
Okay, next. This is a good one. How do you feel about the Trust Act and with having our law enforcement not be able to help federal law enforcement?
I think it's ridiculous. The Trust Act, or the changes and the modifications to the Trust Act, are the exact reason why, we're having these incidents with ICE in our neighborhoods and nobody's talking about it. So I made a video about this a long time ago where I was like, hello, like, you did this to yourselves because you said that law enforcement couldn't coordinate. I mean, it's ridiculous. So you have a violent criminal that's, let's just say they're in state court getting processed in court. You're going to tell me, so now I can't have federal immigration authorities come and process them on federal charges while they're in the court system. We've got to send them back out home into our neighborhoods and then let ICE pretend to be bounty hunters.
Well, and hope ICE knows, because we can't inform ICE that they're here.
Right. That's right. This is ridiculous. So I think that answers how I feel about the question.
Okay.
So I know we're running overtime. We'll try to burn through the rest of these pretty quick. But what's working in Connecticut's education system and what clearly isn't, and what should success look like for graduating high school students?
I think we definitely touched on this before with what the ECS and all
Yes.
that. But so what should
Reading.
Success look like for reading?
Writing, math.
Yeah. Like,
Common Core.
graduating with basic, with basic knowledge, but also graduating with a pathway to a career, whether that is in college or whether that is in a trade. I don't think that we focus enough on the trades. Coming from the wife of a Mason, we definitely don't have a big focus on that in our schools. And college is not for everyone. It's certainly not. But when you look at how our state trade schools, the problems that are within those schools itself, they're having problems getting students in. They've got it's really disheartening. They get rid of wood, they get rid of shop, they get rid of all this in our schools, and then wonder why kids are graduating. They don't know what to do or where to go. So I definitely think a focus on providing a career pathway out of school is something that needs to be changed as well.
Okay.
And
Public safety. How concerned should Connecticut residents be about crime? And what role should the governor play in supporting local police while also addressing accountability?
So public safety is a core function of local government, and providing it. I worked so close with our New Britain Police Department when I was mayor. And I think that, crime should always be a concern for us. We should always be paying attention to it instead of, this came out this past week and it really frustrated me. They're saying that crime's down all across the state. Do you guys see that?
Ned says that all the time. Crime's down.
Crime's down. Crime's down. Yeah. Crime's down when you're changing the mechanism by which and by how you track crime and how you classify
Well, and
crime.
if you don't charge them, then the crime looks like it's down.
You're right. So, I mean, I just find that to be utterly ridiculous when all of us are seeing more and more car break-ins in our neighborhoods and thefts from on stores and small business owners. And sure, they're like small crimes, but the reason why they're not being reported on is because they're not being charged.
Yep.
Because a lot of them is minor right now. And now we have this huge thing going on where, you can't hold a minor accountable because they could grow up and be a decent human being.
Yeah.
And yet they absolutely could.
They could.
They absolutely could. However, if they've chosen the certain paths that they're on now, then they should be charged so that maybe they'll stop.
That's right. I think, but they have to learn right from wrong. And if they're not learning that at home, well, then somebody has to teach them. And listen, nobody wants to send kids to jail.
No.
I get that. No one wants to send kids to jail, but we do want
If
kids.
they commit a felony, bad felony.
Well, yes.
Bye.
Yes.
Oh, well,
however,
violent felonies, absolutely. I don't care if you're 12. Same with the gun charges. When you have 12-year-olds breaking into gun stores and stealing guns because they send in the minor,
right,
because they get away with it. If at 12, this child is breaking into a store and stealing guns, he needs to pay a price.
He needs to learn a lesson.
And the parents.
Interesting topic as of late.
I don't know about that.
No.
That's something we might disagree on. Just saying. If you can shoot, if you can
Where is your child at 2 a.m.? I bet you know where yours is, and she's an adult.
Yeah. But then sometimes you have the parents that try to do everything possible and they still have a problem child. I've seen it. So, but I'm a little bit different on that one. I think it's a case by case, because I think if my child did something and I had done everything possible, I had grounded her, I had, done, it wasn't just like, whatever you want to do, kid. I don't think I should be charged with anything. If she gets stupid, she should pay the price. So that's how I feel. I mean, I would have been the one dragging my child to the police department, but that's just me.
See, there you go. Accountability.
Learning right from wrong.
Yes. All right. So the next one is bipartisanship and political climate. How do you govern a state where the people feel deeply divided? And what's your response to voters who say politics don't help people like me? So some of this we touched on, but then there's also a little bit differently. I mean, because this state is deeply divided.
It is
in many manners, whether it be political, whether you talk about race.
Yeah. However,
it's
I think
ugly.
It is
Gun owners, non-gun owners.
But I do think that at the core of it, there's a lot more that we can agree on. We haven't found a leader that taps into that. Leaders oftentimes, they want that divide. Ned Lamont wants that divide right now because it benefits him, because the numbers work in his favor. Well, what would leadership and what would our state look like if you actually had a leader that wanted to bring people together for compromise? And I think that's a big difference between Ned and I.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
We talked about electricity, so I'm going to skip over those.
I like the leadership and accountability.
That's your question.
How should voters hold you accountable once elected for, what you're running on? How do you think they should hold you accountable?
I think it's a simple question to answer. Did she deliver on what she promised? And if the answer is no, then there's another election coming. And I think that, that I have to hold myself accountable too if the people put me in this position, and it's a big position and a lot of trust that people are putting in you, and I have to deliver. And if I can't, then I better be very clear with people about why. Right.
Yes. Okay.
And I have no problem with that. I'm very vocal on social media. I'm always talking. I'm always putting everything out there. When I was mayor, I had a show that I did. I'm actually still doing a little podcast every second and fourth Friday of the month. I have it tomorrow. But just interact with people, take questions online, like always. I'm not afraid to interact like that. I don't like to put that wall up like a lot of people do. I'm not rehearsed. I'm not, like reading from a script. I'm not, reciting anything in my head here. I'm very different there. I'm comfortable with just laying it out there for people. So to hold me accountable, I've got to hold myself accountable too. And I only do that by continuing to interact with people too.
Okay.
So I got 3 closing questions, but first we posted on social media that you were coming on, and we have some questions for that. So these are like the surprise questions that are not on here.
Okay.
So I know you've answered some of these before, especially probably the big one that's going to get asked. But first, Grant versus Lamont. You've heard about the case.
She has
She
notes.
got paper
I
on it.
got my notes because I knew this was going to come up, and I was like,
so not putting you on the spot, but just general thoughts. So most people watching, especially if they've gotten this far, probably know about Grant versus Lamont, which is our main lawsuit to reverse the
assault weapon.
Assault weapon ban. And then more recently, the 2023 Connecticut Other, which was our get around that SAG did and Standard Manufacturing did. Standard did a lot of them. And so thoughts on it, I guess, is just the general question.
So I think it's promising that it's moved so far along in the process, right? I think, and listen, the Democrats have to be held accountable for the ridiculous laws that they pass. And we talked earlier in the podcast about, passing laws that are not only unenforceable, but based off of feeling and not in reality. I think it's important that you have the opportunity to challenge that. It's unfortunate that it's probably cost so much money to get this far.
And will cost more.
And I'm sure, yes, I'm sure. But, listen, that would send one hell of a clear message if this case is won.
It would actually make the state a lot of money too from the sales tax.
It would. But I have a question that just popped into my head, and it goes along with all of this. So earlier you had said, even as just a regular gun owner, how do you know what laws have changed? Okay. And, then we bring this up with this going through, and you think, okay, all these people that have these things, who knows if they're not paying attention, they may have things that are now,
not legal.
They do. I mean, they certainly do.
If you win the election and you become the governor, and this was not asked before, so this is just an off the cuff, would you be willing if somebody like us came and talked to you, would you be willing to look at SLFU and the way they handle it so that because SLFU is your special licensing, because they have a list of all the gun owners or the permit holders in Connecticut. If a quick, easy blurb was emailed, because they now have that information for everybody or most people, if an email went out and said, hey, this law changed, you can only do this, or you can only have fixed mags. It's an easy, quick merge, send.
So you're kind of going off of HB 6667, which passed June 6, 2023.
Yeah.
Where it made CT others illegal and we had to register them. And 90% of gun owners don't know this. That was the whole reason we started our podcast, actually. So that's what she's going off of. I'm figuring this out here from the question.
Okay.
Yes and no. It also goes back to...
But the notification aspect and letting people know things, I guess, is kind of the question.
Well, even the mag, when they went to no longer standard capacity, they went to 10-round mags, so neutered ones. We still see people that come in and say, what do you mean that's illegal? That's how I bought it.
Yeah.
It came with that magazine. So that was a huge hit. And that was back with Sandy Hook that people so many years later, over 10 years later, still don't know. So the thought process was it adds work. So there have to be some sort of a fiscal line.
If you really want people to follow the law, though, is it really adding work? They should have thought about that when they passed the law.
Well, that's
as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
Communication is very important. You can't expect people to follow the law if you're not communicating with them what the heck it is. And
not being lawyers, I'm not saying they have to be lawyers when they send out, because we leave everything up to interpretation. But a quick, whatever SLFU is requiring of you, or whatever is the easiest, hey dude, you got to, 10-round mags only. Keep in mind,
I don't think that that's a bad idea. It's communication.
Okay.
And doesn't that,
that it's very lacking on the state side.
Well, it's again, do they care?
But I think what happens is that aspect gets lost. The laws pass, the governor does whatever the governor does, and then they go, yep, they handle it. But nobody ever says, hey, could you handle it this way? And then when it doesn't get handled, they go, what do you mean? I mean, the police commissioner in charge of SLFU still doesn't know where they sit with the registrations. He was like, no, we're almost done with them. They haven't even hit half.
Not even close.
Oh my God.
So how do you feel about the 10-round magazine aspect?
I can't say that there is. Okay. So like for me personally,
she's got a little gun. It doesn't matter.
I have a little tiny gun, right? Like it doesn't, I have this little tiny revolver. It doesn't matter for me.
For a revolver, yes.
But I understand, but I understand the frustration, especially for the reasons that you state. Like,
it makes it a D felony charge.
Well, you don't even have to. I mean, you could talk about high cap, because everybody talks about high capacity mags, meaning over 10, which is BS.
Standard capacity.
Standard capacity is whatever comes with the firearm.
I
can understand if you want to put a 60-round stick into your gun. Number one, it's not going to shoot well. That's just kind of stupid. Not that I want any laws, but the way they change it to get away from your standard capacities is crazy. In Connecticut, we jump through hoops, have to block mags, have to do all kinds of stuff, which adds more time, more money to the business. And you can only pass off X amount, because otherwise you outprice yourself, because you're competing with all these other people in the industry. And so you end up with a huge disparity on this. And it's stupid. What's 5 rounds going to do, guys?
Impossible to enforce, too.
Correct. And if you know how to shoot.
Yeah. You're gonna hit your target?
Can carry.
I'm not one of those. But you should have seen my target yesterday.
You can have a 10-round mag.
Is that the safest thing out there was the target?
Oh, yeah.
Well, what kills me is you can have 10-round mag in your gun, and then you can carry 50 magazines on you if you choose to, but only 10 rounders at a time.
Right.
So I got one more viewer question. This was asked a few times in a few different forms, and I think you've been asked this before.
Probably.
New Britain, especially when you were mayor, gets grouped in with Hartford, Waterbury, New Haven, and Bridgeport.
Merredin's in there too, but yeah.
And Merredin too. In the time it took for pistol permits to be processed. I think you've answered it before, maybe on a social media blurb or something, but why? And it's still taking long. So it's not something that changed when, I don't know who has the seat now.
It got better. I'll tell you.
And I know COVID.
Story.
Yeah, so go for it.
Yeah, I have a whole story. So I didn't know that it was taking that long to get a permit in New Britain until someone from CCDL reached out to me and said, hey, what gives? Why is this happening? infringing on our rights. I was like, whoa, like, hold on a second. Let's back up for a minute and figure out what's going on. So I actually had when I was mayor, this is what I did about it. I had one of the sergeants give the CCDL member a call, talk to him, explain that they were short staffed, that the stack was just piling up. And this was during COVID times too. Staff was tough. They were pulled in a million different directions. The stack got piled up. When it was brought to my attention, I reassigned officers to go to that division to start.
Because by law, it's only 8 weeks. Like, I don't know if you knew that.
Oh yeah, it is. But oftentimes when you have so many applications and not a lot of staff,
the big 5 cities there, right? So
yeah, so many applications, not a lot of staff. It becomes very difficult unless you're hiring more or reallocating staff and taking them off the street. So what I did was put more guys in the office to start pushing through it, so that the time frame shrunk down significantly. And so today, I mean, I think it's got to be pretty close to that 8 weeks now.
Because there's towns that can do it, and obviously they're probably smaller, that can do it in literally. I've had people that have gotten their permit in 2 days.
Sure.
So, Southington, for example, I've had them. Mine took 8 weeks when I originally got mine. I had somebody the other day get his in 3 weeks.
Yeah,
and there's no rhyme or reason
and
to that. But
I get the time. I get the quantity. Trust me, COVID time was rough.
Yes.
Okay, but on the other hand, we talked before about enforcement and accountability, and if it's a law that says 8 weeks, there should not be. If you're going to follow the law, there should not be. Well, we got a lot and we didn't have time and we didn't have the manpower. I get those were obstacles, but I think the bigger problem with everybody is that's the law.
I mean, yeah, that's fine. When it was brought to my attention, I did something about it. And I guess that's all you could really ask for from an elected official too.
Okay.
All right. Closing 3. Why should a voter who's never voted Republican vote for you, or it says trust you? So let's say it's an independent. They've never voted for a Republican ever. Why should they vote for you?
So I'd like to think that I'm a regular Connecticut resident that experiences life the way most of us do here and wants to make good, honest changes, not rooted in anything that is fueled by a political party or feeling like, my allegiance is to the people of this state. And that's it. I think that should be enough for them to feel confident in casting a ballot for me.
Okay. What is one question you wish the media asked gubernatorial candidates more often across the board, not just Republicans, like both? Like, if you all were standing up there, anyone that was running for governor right now, and they were going to ask a question to everyone, the same one, what would it be?
Such a good question, because you want to get creative with it. But I'm like, I always think about
simple too.
I know my mind always goes to the unfair questions that I get asked as opposed to everybody else. But if there's one question that I think everybody should be asked, I think it kind of goes to what we talked about earlier. Like how has your upbringing shaped your morals and your values and how you look at the function and the role of government? We never talk about that stuff.
Okay. And the last question, what do you want Connecticut residents to know about you that has not come up yet?
I put everything out there.
So she's got nothing.
I don't know. I literally put everything out there, and I'm not afraid to answer any question that people have for me. So I don't know if there's anything that I haven't ever said. I don't know.
All right.
There was a lot today. I learned a lot.
Yeah, that's good. That means that you've been telling people everything. So
and
that's a good
transparent.
thing.
That's a word that likes to get used in politics a lot.
I know. Transparency.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean in politics. It usually doesn't mean what you and I think it should mean.
It's like I go, oh my God, I have PTSD over that word because they kept saying when I was mayor, oh, she's not transparent. She's not transparent. I literally put everything out there because I didn't care. It's the people's house. This is your business. What I do is your business. So here, have at it. What do you want access to? Yeah. You want to read my freaking emails? Go ahead. Whatever. Go for it. I'm not going to prevent it, but I don't know. I put everything out there. I'm just not afraid of that. Again, it just makes me, it makes me different than a lot of people in this world too. And again, that's why a lot of people that I would consider to be insiders in this whole state political realm, they don't know what to make of me, and I'm okay with that.
I have one last question just for you. because I know I have not always been a Republican. Have you always been a Republican?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Day one, registered to vote as a Republican. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
never changed.
I mean, not that it matters at all. I'm just curious because I've been all over the board.
Yeah.
Like literally all over the board.
Sure.
So I was trying to figure out where I fit personally, and now I found my home.
Well, a lot of people either get influenced by their parents,
Yes.
right? That's a thing.
Well, you're born a Democrat because you get everything for free.
I tell some younger people this and that I interacted with in like my campaign at like Apple Harvest that we're Democrats. And I'm like, as soon as you pay taxes, you're not going to like that anymore. And it's the amount of taxes, at least in one of my opinions. And you're not, I think you've said this a few times today, you're not just always in that bubble, right? You're, not everything you agree with fits in one category. No. We'll say it's a spectrum in the political aspect. I think one of the problems with the left, though, in my opinion, is the left goes and the right goes far too, but the left is kept pulling that left side so far left and so far left. I think a lot of moderates find themselves now on the bright side.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's good. Hopefully it works for us and hopefully we can turn Connecticut around.
Hopefully they come out to vote.
Yes. That's what they need to do.
That's what they need to do.
I don't want to see a reflection of what happened 2 years ago. What
happened this year, November.
Yeah.
That was bad.
So a lot of what we have to think about too as members of the Republican Party is who is the candidate that is going to give Ned Lamont that run.
Mm-hmm.
And
or Elliot, either one.
Yeah. Who is the person that's going to do that? And that's where I think I stand apart.
So you have the convention coming up in middle of May.
About a month.
37 days. Who's counting?
Apparently,
I'm counting.
Got the countdown on your phone there.
No, it's just in my brain.
Rips off a piece of paper every day. What do you think is going to happen in the convention? What's your prediction?
The convention is such it's such insider baseball, right? It's such inside stuff. So you'll have, the three candidates. And so everybody's working hard right now to try to get to that 50% plus one of the delegate votes. And I'm confident that we'll get there. I'm confident that we will get there, but it's still taking a lot of work. Yeah. So just like what you have like with the electorate, we're dealing with delegates now that are all, you have everybody that's already kind of like in their camps. And then you've got this column here of the folks that are like teetering, could be swayed.
Yeah, I know you and Ryan are coming to SR Southern Tier Republican Town Committee on the 27th, I think, on a Tuesday.
8th.
I think so. 28th
is a Tuesday.
Eventually, at least that's what I thought.
I talked to Mike. I thought I had something else going on that night, and he was like,
I think it was on a Monday, and he moved it to a Tuesday or something. Maybe.
I don't know.
Who knows? See. I'm sure your schedule's obviously it's crazier than mine. Mine's pretty good there. But you're going all over the state.
Every
At least
night.
I'm like staying around here.
Yeah, every night. But so like that's the thing too, right? Like so I also have to balance like that. Like I can't be out 5 nights a week. My husband will divorce me, and my marriage is worth more than anything. So let's throw that out there. And so is my family too. Yeah. So maybe when you talked about the thing, like one thing people want to know, like I have to set boundaries too that are really important in this campaign because I still have to be mom, and being mom is really, really important. And my kids need to know that I'm around. So I can't make it to every like rubber chicken dinner and every fundraiser that's had for a group of 35 Republicans or for an RTC because I have to prioritize my family too. Some people I think it's frustrating for me because some people are accepting of that and some people are not. And some people are just like, I want you at my event. You have to be here. Well, just because I can't make it doesn't mean I'm not supportive of you and want to be there, but I have to be there for my family because you know what, when this works out or whether it doesn't, I need to be with my family. Yeah. And we can't talk about wanting to support candidates that have great morals and values, especially family values, if we're not respectful of when they have to set those boundaries to be there. And so I think that's a difficult thing for me in this world too.
Hopefully you pay your scheduler very well. I'm sure they're balancing things all the time. You see the scheduler?
No.
Well, and then they scream and go, "What did you do? You're supposed to be here."
So on that, I think we've taken enough.
They put me in a car and they're like, drive me there so they know I get there because otherwise I'll like.
So on that, I think we've taken enough of your time today.
I know. Thank you.
Any last minute things? Website, Facebook, social media.
So I'm like super active on social media. You can follow me at Erin Stewart CT across all the platforms. It's TikTok, X, Facebook, Instagram. It's all the same. And if you want to visit me online, you can watch and read all about all my different policy positions and see how I feel on the issues. That's Erin4ct.com. All spelled out, one word, Erin F.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
My name's Josh.
And I'm Michelle.
And I'm Erin.
We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Lock and Load Podcast is sponsored by Lock and Load Firearms, Connecticut's #1 rated gun store and pistol permit class on Google. Come check us out, 1573 Meriden Waterbury Turnpike in Southington. Lock and Load Firearms.
Lock and Load Podcast is also sponsored by Patriot Wear Holsters, custom-made Kydex holsters locally made in Waterbury, Connecticut. www.patriotwearholster.com and use code LNL Podcast for 10% off your purchase. Orders available for shipping or pickup at various locations.